Hi guys! As you can see, I have this gorgeous orchid here with me today because we're talking about her! Yay! Yeah, she's beautiful, isn't she? Oh gosh, this one is my Vanda Sanderiana. I've just spoken about it in another video where I update you about a few stuff. This plant has been with me. It's one of my oldest orchids from my collection because when I started collecting orchids, my husband decided to gift me some and he loved the Vandas and he was like, oh, they're so big, so they're gonna be the most amazing gift. So all the Vandas that I have, the bigger ones that he gave me. So he gifted that to me before the Brexit. He bought this one somewhere in Germany, some of the orchid nurseries there. And this one is a species, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this plant, about its care, and how I managed to bloom it in London. Since I don't live in a tropical country, this plant's not sitting outside, exposed to all the bright light in the world, and how I managed to have it right. So if that's the type of content you want to see, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and let's start talking about this beauty, shall we? Just to start, this plant is from the Philippines, from one island in the Philippines. It can be found in nature, but nowadays it's very rare because, unfortunately, people were taking lots of this plant from nature to sell or for their private gardens. And the problem is when you do that, we endanger some species. Luckily for us, most of the orchids that can be obtained by tissue culture nowadays, we don't need to get them from nature. So, don't buy species from source, unknown source where you don't know these plants are from. Try to find nurseries. There are very well-known nurseries because these plants will be obtained by tissue culture, so you are not getting anything from the wild. Just to let you know, this one is from the Philippines. It's from a tropical country, not from high altitudes. And it is an epiphyte, so like Phalaenopsis and other Vandas and Cattleyas as well. It doesn't grow on the soil. It will grow on top of trees, tree trunks, branches, and will attach, you use its roots to attach to these trees. It doesn't suck any substance from the tree, doesn't depend on it to survive, just to attach and to be able to obtain some sunlight. And also, it will use its adapted roots. If you look at these roots, they are very thick because they are capable of attaching themselves to trees and also keeping this plant attached to it. But not only, they are capable, they are adapted to survive in the air. So the roots will be able to feed the plant and to keep the plant healthy and alive and blooming. So they are very special roots. The evolution made sure that these plants were adapted and were able to survive in a range of different environments. So for the Vandas, they are there in the tropical forest. They will receive all the air circulation, also all the humidity. These roots will be able to use all the microorganisms plus all the substance in the air to feed and to keep growing the plant. Talking about that, it's very important to know where your plant comes from, so then you can have an idea of how to look after these plants. They are monopodial, so like Phalaenopsis, they grow one leaf after another leaf. They have a central axis, and this is very important because if the plant has crown rot, for example, like Phalaenopsis, it will lose its ability to keep growing and you'll probably lose your plant, or your plant can produce keikis, and these keikis will be like new babies. They will mature and become a new Vanda or a new Vanda Sanderiana in the future. But we don't want to harm these plants. So how can we take good care of them for them to be able to grow and survive? Lots of people, especially in tropical countries, will attach them to trees. They will grow amazing in baskets, being bare-rooted, attaching to tree trunks. They do super well because they are epiphytes, so they remember their roots are adapted to grow in the air. They don't grow in soils, so they cannot be suffocated. That's important, but also I cannot have a bare-rooted Vanda in my house because I live in a flat. I don't have the ability to water it very often. If I had it bare-rooted, I would have to soak the roots in a very large space and then wait it for it to be soaked, then it will dry very fast again. I cannot do that. So in this specific case, I decided to pot my Vandas. That's because I need that in the environment that I am in. So I have this big plastic pot. I have one that's in a big clay pot. I drew some holes in it, and that's how I'm taking care of my Vanda. I use bark and a little bit of moss, and the roots adapt well to the potting mix and everything. But I still have to have a place where I can water it. I don't have any decorative container for this massive pot, and I don't have any plate underneath it as well. So I usually, when I water it, I go to the bath and I use the shower in the bath to make sure the whole pot is watered, and then I hang it again here in my window. Something important about these plants is they are highlight plants. So they need bright light to be able to bloom. If you don't have a very bright windowsill, if you live in a northern hemisphere country or towards the southern, like very, very cool countries where you have extreme winter and you don't have high light during the whole year, you need to adapt and think, how can you grow these plants? In my case, I have a southern exposure window that receives the brightest light here where I live in London, so I have space to hang it there. So I pot in this pot and I hang it there. I've been growing it since I received like that, only with natural light, and it has been growing and blooming, as you can see. I have never issue to rebloom this plant, which is amazing. For me, it's quite unbelievable because I'm like, oh no, Vandas, they won't grow. They do, they survive. But I also have two other plants that I cannot hang it because they are pretty heavy. So they are under growing lights. You need to provide very, very bright growing lights in order for you to be successful to grow your Vandas. If you have a Vanda Sanderiana, that's what I would suggest. Something that's also very, very important is fertilizing. Because I cannot water it with all of my other plants, usually it requires more water, and I use the shower. I have lots of slow release fertilizer inside of this pot. And sometimes I just sprinkle some other fertilizer, orchid fertilizer in the water, and I try to provide it to these plants as well. But I usually forget because the easiest way for me is to go to the shower, to the big bath and shower the roots. So I try to remember to replenish all the slow release fertilizer in this pot because this Vanda, it's a heavy feeder. So you need to feed it in order to have blooms as well. So that's another thing that you have to remember. And more than that, you just need to provide the same thing that you do with all of your other epiphytes, and you need to have space. For me, the downside of this plant, there are two things. First, light, that you need to know how to provide bright light, otherwise you won't have blooms. And the second one is size. They are massive orchids, so you need to have space for them. It's very different from Tallunias that you can place anywhere, especially if you live in a flat like I do. They require their space. They are beautiful, but they won't be blooming for the whole year. Like this one only blooms once a year. That's also something for you to keep in mind. And you need to have space for it because it will need that space. But if you do have the space and you find this plant for a very good price from a reputable nursery, I'd suggest you get it. It's beautiful, amazing. I love the flowers. They look like butterflies for me. And apparently, these Vanda, just out of a curiosity, there are some taxonomists that they believe it should be classified separately because most Vandas, they have a 3 lobes. I don't know how I'm gonna say that in English, but anyway, 3 lobes leaf. And the Sanderiana has a bilobe that only 2 lobes leaf, which is different. And there is something different about the leaves as well and how the leaves grow, how they produce like sort of a tunnel here in the middle. So that's why some people like to classify them a little bit differently from other Vandas. But more than that, it's the same care. They are beautiful, gorgeous orchids that impress you every time they bloom. Mine is not a very strike pink color, it's like very subtle, but it's the pattern. Yeah, it's amazing. I will stick to this plant as much as I can do. Sometimes I struggle with space, but I love it so much that I wouldn't give it away. And that's everything that I want to tell you today about Vanda Sanderiana. I hope you enjoy it. If you have this plant as well, let me know down below. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.